What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. It is 8 a.m. on February 24, 2022, and the sun rises over a quiet Hostomel airport on the outskirts of Kiev. Nobody fully realizes it yet, but what unfolds here will become a defining moment in Ukrainian modern history, setting the tone for a conflict that shakes not only Ukraine, but the entire international order. If Ukraine loses control of this relatively unassuming strip of land, Russian troops will have secured a direct route into the nation's core. Kiev, just as Putin's planned, could fall within days. President Zelensky could be taken captive or worse. And the entire country might end up as just another extension of the Russian Federation. Yet, it did not happen. Today, let's talk about how the Battle of Hostomel Airport became an all-or-nothing gamble for Ukraine's survival, and how the airport's destroyed runway and burned down the biggest cargo plane will ultimately symbolize both the tragedy and resilience of a nation fighting against all the odds. We have to roll back the clock to late 2021. The buildup had begun along the Ukrainian border, but everybody hoped that it was just another one of those occasional displays of force by Putin that would fade by itself once the Kremlin made it point. Even President Zelensky, uneasy as he was, tried to maintain composure. Western intelligence, on the other hand, was alarmed. CIA director, for example, William Burns, traveled to Kiev to warn Zelensky personally. Full-scale invasion was on the table, not just a show of power. The United States shared top-secret details, predicting that Russia would launch an attack sometime between mid-February and late March 2022. Despite these dire forecasts, Ukraine's approach was calculated. Zelensky worried that fueling invasion talk would scare off investments and grind the economy down before a single shot was fired. Besides that, the approval rating of Zelensky at that point was very low, somewhere a little above 30%. So talking about the potential war, or even worse, not doing anything about it, will most certainly stir huge unrests among Ukrainian people, who, as history shows, are very likely to bring it to the streets and successfully achieve their demands, unlike their neighbors. In retrospect, it looks like that Putin would have been better off letting the people of Ukraine take care of Zelensky, rather than doing it himself, if that's what was the original goal of invasion. Because as soon as the first Russian boots stepped on Ukrainian soil, the support level for the president tripled, literally overnight. Meanwhile, the Russian Foreign Ministry insisted that their amassing troops were part of regular exercises, hinting that any panic about an impending invasion was Western hysteria. Some Ukrainians, especially those far removed from the conflict-ridden Donbass, brushed off Washington's predictions as overly dramatic. But others understood exactly how bad things could get. Russia's plan, as US intelligence would later reveal, was to decapitate Ukraine's leadership. What quicker route to crush the country than to capture or eliminate its president and set up a puppet government in Kiev? But to do that, Moscow needed a foothold near the capital. While Borispol International Airport might seem like an obvious choice, it was heavily guarded and set on the other side of the Dnipro River, adding logistical challenges. Hostomel Airport, on the other hand, was also very close to Kiev, with a long and wide runway perfect for heavyweight transport planes, and it only had some modest defenses. If the Russians could seize this airport, the path to the capital would be wide open. Main Russian transport planes, Il-76, will start bringing thousands after thousands of troops daily to a place only 35 kilometers away from Kiev's city center. This airport was the main puzzle piece in Putin's master plan of invasion. Hostomel itself is a small to medium-sized town, home to 18,000 people, and its airport is overshadowed by bigger airports around Kiev. Its primary role was the gargantuan An-225 cargo plane Mriya, a Soviet-era behemoth originally built to transport the Buran space shuttle. This was obviously during the era of big tensions between the USSR and America, to see who can establish the unquestionable dominance in space. The US space shuttle program was somewhat successful, but not nearly good enough, so it was discontinued. The Soviet response was even worse. No wonder Russian kids do not learn anything about this failed experiment in schools. Like, I almost knew nothing. After the Soviet Union collapsed, the Buran program ended, and the An-225 roles gradually shrank to hauling huge amounts of various cargo. Yet, for all its reduced stature, Hostomel's runway remained a strategic gem. It stretched 3,500 meters, perfect for any military aircraft that might soon carry tanks, ammunition and thousands of soldiers right up to Kiev's doorstep. And what about that legendary plane? Well, it sat inside a hangar, a living relic of Soviet ambitions that never reached the heights they dreamed of. While the rest of the world remembered Hostomel vaguely, or not at all, Ukraine's modest defenses of approximately 300 National Guard troops stayed on very high alert. These men were not special forces. They were more like armored security guards than frontline warriors, accustomed to policing the area rather than repelling a full-scale Russian offensive. But that's all Ukraine believed it needed, because the probability that Russia would be that silly enough to invade the capital seemed too low to commit major forces. And unfortunately, they were wrong. Then, in the early hours of February 24, it happened. President Putin went on Russian television, declaring a special military operation. Within a few hours, dozens of Ka-52 gunships and Mi-8 transport helicopters soared over Hostomel's horizon, carrying hundreds of Russian paratroopers behind enemy lines. This was a blitzkrieg tactic, designed to stun the airport's defenders and secure a quick victory. Ukraine's defenders did the best they could, firing whatever anti-air capabilities they had left after Russian missiles destroyed many of their systems. And there was not even that many air defense options in the first place. Once again, the expectation of the attack, and especially in that area, was very low, but surprisingly, Ukrainians still were able to down Ka-52 attack helicopter. But that was a mere dent in Moscow's immediate momentum. The 300 Ukrainian guards found themselves pinned by a combined ground and air assault. Out of ammunition and options, they withdrew, leaving Russia in control of the tarmac by mid-afternoon. One might think that, well, that was it, airport is lost, invasion route is open, Ukraine is doomed. But Ukraine had a secret advantage. American intelligence had warned Zelensky's government about Russia's exact plan. Ukrainian troops had quietly prepared a counterattack, and they launched it fast. Special forces, mechanized brigades, and the Georgian Legion moved in for a coordinated assault, while Ukrainian artillery rained shells on the runway. The goal was to prevent the arrival of the Il-76 transport planes that Russia wanted to land, each of them loaded with more troops and heavy equipment. If those giant planes made it down safely, Russia would have an unbreakable grip on Hostomel and a wide open road to Kiev. And that never happened. Under a hail of Ukrainian fire and with more reinforcements arriving, the Russians at Hostomel found themselves overextended and outnumbered. By nightfall of February 24th, Ukraine regained the control of the airport. The cost was huge on both sides, and the runway was in ruins. But for that brief moment, Hostomel was once again in Ukrainian hands, just enough to deny Russia its biggest strategic advantage. If you stop the clock right there, you would think that Ukraine had dodged a bullet, but the Russians had more forces on the way. The next morning, that infamous convoy, tanks, artillery and logistics trucks rolled in from Belarus through Chernobyl. With Hostomel practically bombed out of functionality, perhaps the name even airport was no longer appropriate. Even if Russians took it back, the planes will not be able to land there. Still, fresh Russian forces arrived in overwhelming numbers, and Ukrainian troops had no choice but to pull back. Hostomel fell once again, becoming the first useless but symbolic victory for Moscow. The runway was too damaged for big transport planes to land, and losses were in hundreds, and in less than 1 month, Russians lost the control over Hostomel airport once and for all. Putin's chance at quickly decapitating the Ukrainian government evaporated completely. But in that short span of under 30 days, Russian propaganda was already showing its very first attempts to present something insignificant as a major victory. They knew that the runway will not be able to be used by planes for many more months to come. And there were no signs of them trying to fix it either, except removing the occasional debris from the runway itself. Still not enough for major cargo planes to use it as a landing strip. But the propaganda kept spitting out statements that one day, when the airport is fixed, we will resume our offensive against Kiev and finish what we have started. Well, as you can see, it never happened. In the weeks that followed, the world learned about the brutality surrounding Hostomel. Nearby towns like Bucha became infamous for war crimes, setting off international outrage. Russia never managed to assault Kiev directly. The dreaded convoy turned into an extended traffic jam, bogged down by logistics failures, Ukrainian militia attacks, and a determination in the local population that Moscow did not anticipate. By the end of March, Russian troops withdrew from the outskirts of the capital to refocus their efforts elsewhere. Hostomel remained in Ukrainian territory, destroyed and practically unusable as an airport, but still standing as a testament to the moment when a small group of defenders, aided by the Western intelligence and a lightning-fast response, robbed Kremlin of its best chance at a swift victory. Well, there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below. Thanks so much for watching, and see you on Friday.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims are resolve they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.